Hello and welcome back to the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your co-host Ethan, joined once again by Ryan, who is fighting through it to be it with us today. So we're gonna
Um,
hopefully be short and sweet for you guys today. But it is time for the playoffs. The
Woo!
the battling has been done. The losers, Tyler, have been booted from playoff contention, even though he got one last pot shot at me, which is fine. Um, But yeah, it is time. It's time for the
Yep.
playoffs.
It is time for the playoffs. And our first seed is the infamous Josh Richter. He's been absolutely destroying this year.
Yeah, who
So
decides that he just doesn't need to show up?
he's a heavy favorite to win this. Honestly, I do think that if he makes it past you, because you have Ashley, I don't know, Ashley could pull a quick one on you and
Well,
beat
yeah.
you. But
If
honestly, I
Tyreek
think you're gonna
if
win.
Tyreek has a God matchup and
Yeah,
Mike Evans has a God day,
yeah.
then
So she could beat you. But I know, Mike Evans
yeah,
has
anything's
shown that
possible.
he has that explosive ability and has been
Well, yeah, he did it last
pretty
time.
good this
He
year.
put up 30
So
and her defense and kicker put up 30 because,
yeah.
why not? You know?
But hey,
Why not?
it could happen. And you know,
Just like
the
this
way I
last
see
week
this going,
with
the way I see this going,
mm-hmm.
I beat Caldwell,
Yeah, that's
you
a
beat Ashley, then I'm
yeah.
sorry, but I think Josh beats you and Alex could beat me. I may go into the championship this year. I
No,
don't know.
there's no way that Alex's team is going to be yours. Oh, well, this is coming. This is coming. So, because I want to talk about these matchups too, and then we can
Yeah,
transition into our dream lineups because a lot of these players are in our dream lineups are also in our fantasy matchups.
yeah,
So, first, just get out of the way. Pacheco is still not practicing.
yeah.
I don't know what the update is on that because they haven't said anything, but like they need him,
Yeah,
especially after this loss to the Bills. They need a run game because not that McKinnon was bad,
yeah.
but there was a very big difference, I think, between Pacheco and CEH and McKinnon. Even though I
Hmm.
thought CEH ran the ball really well.
Yeah, there was a very noticeable difference. I mean, CEH had some explosive plays, but I don't know. I don't think he did it. I don't think he could do what Pacheco does, at
No,
least
like
as well.
he's the juice. He's the energy. Um,
Yeah. Now, Jarek McKinnon, I could see having a pretty good game, um, just because he's getting a majority of the pass work, and he's always looked explosive when he's gotten that pass work. So that's why they used that tandem last year near the end of the year of him and Pacheco because they were solid together. Having Pacheco just run it between the tackles and McKinnon catch passes outside. So
so I guess
so
there's
Pacheco's out.
it's unlikely he's
It's
gonna.
unlikely. He still might be able to play. I know at least one person has been ruled out that's listed as questionable. Keenan Allen, just an hour ago, was listed as out. So they just now
That
listed
is
him.
that is brutal.
That is brutal for me for like two or three of my fantasy leagues. I have him in. So that is really brutal, but it's something that, obviously you got to deal with. So, and luckily I have pretty decent depth on my team. It's not a killing blow, but you know, it's definitely going to hurt.
I mean, I
So,
think I think that one's a killer for a lot of people though,
yeah,
um, potentially not having
yeah,
Keenan Allen, who as of
yeah. I'm lucky to have a good depth on my
he's
team,
I mean, he's wide
but
receiver three on the year and
yeah,
it's week one of the playoffs and he's
yeah.
uh
But he's had a lackluster couple of weeks. It hasn't been great. He's
yeah, I
been
mean these last
decent.
weeks have been bad, but before
Yeah.
that he's been tearing it up.
Hmm.
But it's still
But
they have a good
but
matchup.
honestly,
Raiders,
even
that's
if
disappointing.
yeah, but Herbert's not even in. So
That's also true.
that's a big deal. Like honestly, I don't know if I can trust him from here on out, even if he does play next week if I make it past that first round. So I don't know if I can trust him. Um, Another one that is still listed as questionable, but he stated that he's playing on Saturday is Justin Jefferson. So he was injured last game after only playing, a couple of
Okay.
plays. Yeah, he got injured, got took a huge hit to the ribs. Um, but he said he is playing. So I hope he sticks to his word and the doctors don't, keep him. But I know at least he is. Um, Josh Jacobs has been listed as questionable. I know. Oh shoot. Who else? It is ETN still questionable. Nico's still questionable.
But
Um,
ETN's one though that's a questionable
yeah,
but trending to play, unlike
yeah,
Pacheco trending to not play.
and same with Devonte Adams. He's there. He's still questionable. And Jamar Chase, which even with Jamar Chase, I don't know if I trust Browning. I mean, he
He's
proved that
been
he could get
lighting
it
it up.
to. I know. He's been lighting it up, but I don't know. I don't know. I have a hard time trusting anybody but Joey B to throw the ball to uh, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean,
we'll
transitioning
see.
into fantasy football playoff talk for
Yeah.
our that's kind of how I feel about Jared Goff right now. Like, even though
Hmm.
it's not a terrible matchup against Denver, it's like this is 2 straight weeks where he's
Yeah.
kind of hurt you a little bit. I mean, 2 weeks ago he didn't hurt you as much when he put up 17 and a half, but when he puts up 8
Yeah.
against Chicago, which that was the worst performance I've seen like this season, arguably other than when they played Chicago the first time. Like I don't know what it is about playing Chicago where Detroit just decided to suck it up and look horrendous, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Like it was hard to
Yeah.
watch. So sorry if you're a Detroit fan because they let you down, but
Yeah. And I don't know if it's going to get any better this week. So we'll
yeah.
see.
I mean, I think Jameer Gibbs is a good play. I think Sun God is still a good play, and even Laporta.
Yeah, but they're facing Denver. They have been a very solid defense as of late. So it's hard to see him doing really well, like fantasy playoff well. So
I feel better if
if
I'm a
you,
Gibbs or Monty owner. So like me,
yeah,
I have Gibbs. I mean, I don't feel great about it unless Monty goes down, but I think he's so good that he's gonna score.
yeah.
Like he's
Well,
gonna be
and Gibbs is going to be getting a lot of passing work, so
right.
I think
I'd feel less
that's a
confident
boon.
with Monty than I would feel over Gibbs.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
So like if I'm Alex who's playing you this week for first week in the playoffs, I'm kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. Or not Alex, Caldwell. I'm shaking in my boots a little bit because well, Alex going forward, who won't have Monty, but I'd be afraid to play you this week. I'd be afraid to have like Alex's team because he has Monty, and that's just a big hole in his lineup. He also has Eckler. Like he has the two largest holes I think of any fantasy playoff team other than like Ashley's RB2.
Yeah,
So, but Ashley has the boom squad. Like that's what she has
yeah.
going for.
Well, it's boom or bust. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I mean that's what her team has been all season. Like she either boomed and beat the pants off of whoever she was playing,
yeah,
or she got absolutely lit up.
yeah, and she doesn't really have any type of backup anything. Like if any of one of her players gets injured, there's
Yeah, there's nothing.
nobody to come in for him,
Well, and
and
that's why
that's rough.
I'm wondering if Tyreek was going to play this week or not
Yeah,
against the Jets with his ankle injury. And I
that
mean,
could be a killer for her team.
they haven't talked about it at all about how he's doing with
Yeah,
his ankle injury, but I'm guessing he's going to play. But you're playing
I'm
injured
thinking he is going to play.
Jets
Yeah,
when you're going to have Sauce Gardner trailing you the entire game. That's
Yeah,
That's a matchup I'm
that's
really
rough.
like. If you have Tyreek Hill, I really hope you got the bye
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
do not like that
But
match this week.
going back to our league, the toilet bowl, that is entertaining. Honestly, I kind of hoped my dad would beat me this week just to see him in the playoffs because he would be a wrecking ball in the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
Absolute wrecking ball.
he'd be over Codwell,
Yeah.
which would have made the
And
seating interesting.
mhm.
I think he would have been playing Ashley, and it would be me and you playing.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. That would be very interesting. But thank the Lord he's not in the winner's bracket. So we're just all
Yeah,
of us
I don't
kind
want
of
to see.
took a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I didn't want to see Kyren and Bijan and
Hmm.
Laporta and
Because
Josh
his
Allen.
team, with the exception of last week, where, a couple of his players just
He
bombed.
just undershot a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, it was like, I think it was 25 points.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, for me, like my team just isn't built for boat races,
Yeah.
And like if somebody's gonna boat race me, then it's like, well, gee willikers, because I mean, if Zach Moss would frickin' perform,
Yeah.
I could boat race. But with him not performing, like my target points is like 150. So like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, boat race anybody to like 180, 200, but I know I'm gonna get 140 or 150.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you could explode though with your team. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
um,
mean, it's always a possibility. It's less of a boom chance than like Ashley has, but like there is a realm where Gibbs goes off, ETN goes off,
yeah.
uh, and Pittman. If Pittman scores a touchdown, like that is going to be so devastating to
Yeah.
whoever I'm playing. But I love
Mhm.
Pittman in the playoffs. Like this guy, I don't
Yeah.
have him in my lineup because he's so. It's funny because we talk about guys who are touchdown dependent, and then there's a new Pittman category that he's created this season where he is not dependent on touchdowns whatsoever because he gets over eight.
Well, he gets like yeah, well, and he gets like 12 targets a game.
Well,
Like
yeah, I
holy
mean,
crap.
over the last 4 weeks, yeah, the least amount of targets he's gotten is 11.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
If he gets a touchdown, he's going to be like that Tennessee game where it's 11 for 16, 100 yards and a touchdown, which is 30
Yeah.
points. And that's devastating.
Yeah. That's
Um,
if he gets a touchdown.
because that's
But
last week what I went up against in DJ Moore. Like
yeah.
that wide receiver gets 30 points, and you were just sitting there like, well,
Hmm.
it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
But there are
So,
other guys
okay.
who aren't. So,
Okay. So, our toilet bowl. Let's predict the toilet bowl.
yep,
Obviously, we have Duran in.
Duran, Duran, Duran.
Duran is tanking. Um, I honestly think it's going to be a Michaela
I think
and
it's Michaela
Duran.
Duran.
I think
So
it's going to
here's
be
here's what
Michaela
I think
Duran.
is funny about that toilet bowl is
But
Tyler threw that last little pot shot at me this last week, but because he beat me, he got Duran instead of he could have played Paul, your dad, if he had lost to me.
yeah,
So in his attempt to throw a pot shot at me, he's now screwed himself out of the first overall pick and or
yeah.
the second overall pick. So even though
He's
he
now
did
looking for
this last week,
fourth or third.
yeah. And but I mean that's brutal for him because
Yeah,
if he ends up I mean third isn't the end of the world, but he's not gonna he's not gonna, you know, oh no, he might lose to your dad if he tanks.
I
So
don't.
it might not be the end of the world at third, but like
Yeah,
that's QB territory, and he doesn't need a QB unless
yeah.
the Bears shock everyone and take Caleb Williams.
That would be interesting because they could take him
I mean, they
and
could.
could even parlay him into another pick. Remember, Oh, what happened
Well,
with
there's a projection that they might trade him to Atlanta.
yeah. Well, it was like Big Ben and was it Eli Manning or something like that. They swapped the QBs
Oh,
and then
Drew
added.
Brees and Philip
Yeah,
Rivers.
it was Drew Brees. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I thought it was Big. It had something to do with Big Ben,
No,
but
it was it wasn't Drew Brees. It was Eli Manning who got drafted by the Chargers. So I think it was Eli and Philip.
oh, okay, yeah, and they like swapped.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be interesting. They could, hold him hostage
Maybe
for the
free
highest
stuff.
bidder.
They could, man. And there was a lot of talk about Atlanta going for him, but that's for later on down the road.
Yeah, that's for draft predictions,
Yeah,
and
I really
we
think
can
it's
go
gonna
into
be
that
I really think it's
later.
gonna be a drawn fam
Yeah.
against Michaela, and there unless a lot of his guys boom, there's no way that he beats Michaela in the toilet bowl.
All right.
Well, I mean, I want to like talk really quickly. So for
Okay,
now,
real quick.
circling back to the main bracket, like yeah, it's you against Codwell. I mean, the matchup, he's got Hurts, which I think is a lot of our dream QBs for this week. He's got a really good matchup against Seattle. T-Law against Baltimore, like that matchup is going to be brutal, other than like I think ETN. Like other than
Yeah.
that, I don't want anyone in that Baltimore Jaguars game. Like Gus Edwards is going to have a terrible time against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Um, he's
And
got Ken Walker
Keaton
against
Mitchell.
oh, what Keaton Mitchell?
Isn't Keaton Mitchell? I thought
Yeah,
Keaton
well,
Mitchell was starting.
I don't even want Keaton Mitchell. He is
Yeah.
starting, but I don't trust him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe Evan Ingram, but if T Law had a game like he did last week, this week, I don't want anyone other than ETN in that game.
And Ingram. You want Ingram.
Maybe. I mean, he's still a maybe if T
Did
Law.
you see? Did you see what he did? Oh
Yeah,
my
but
gosh.
I mean, the way I'm just saying T Law. Like, I don't trust T Law
Uh,
is my only thing. I mean,
yeah,
maybe
but even then, their backup is going to favor tight end. And they're going to,
we'll see.
especially with Christian Kirk out,
Hmm.
they're going to favor uh, ETN, Ingram, and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I'm just saying I don't want T Law. I'm not putting T Law
yeah.
on my dream anything.
See,
I'm not
I
putting
have to
Ridley on
have
my
him in my
dream anything.
lineup because all of
I know.
my QBs
You are
are
praying, which is why you're pushing for it, and I
are
understand that.
crap.
So, and I can respect that. But so moving on
Yeah,
from that matchup, you've got Ken Walker against Tony Pollard, Tony against Buffalo. Like you don't need to say anymore. That's
yeah,
a great matchup. Ken against Philly is terrible. Henry, I think, is very question marky because Houston defense is good, and he's
mhm,
either up or down. So I don't know. I favor you in that in terms of getting points. Javante against Detroit will be interesting, but he's going to get his.
yeah,
I think Jay Jettas and Addison are going to be incredibly disappointing for him. And then you've got St. Brown and CD. Like
yeah.
you're gonna from one of those two, you're gonna get yours.
See, I'm rooting for JJ because Nick Mullins throws a decent ball.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm rooting for JJ on that, but
yeah.
that's just
Brees
me.
is sneaky good.
So
Too. Brees is
yeah,
sneaky in the
yeah,
flex. And then I mean, yeah, back to end off on me and Ashley's like with Pacheco being questionable, I think that might throw a little monkey in there. But
yeah,
yeah, I think Russ has been consistent, maybe not the best, but he's been consistent to where I just cannot put Goff in
yeah.
over him.
Yep,
And
I
then I
agree
think
with
it's
that.
just going to come down to matchups against me and Ashley. Like she has Tua versus the Jets. Is Tua and Tyreek still going to be good anyways? We're going to watch and find out at noon on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm hoping Tua does well. So that's just me though.
And these weird Saturday games that we have, like I'm going to watch a
Yeah,
lot of
that was odd. I didn't even know that they were
I don't
Saturday
know
games until
exactly
like
why, but I mean,
Sunday.
I'm happy to have football earlier.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
yeah,
complain about
true.
having football earlier.
Now I get 2 days of football.
Right, yeah. So like I get the Broncos and Lions who play Saturday night,
Yeah,
and then I'm gonna hopefully have Pacheco Sunday morning. And then I have Monday night because that's the Seattle Philly game, and I've got DK. And then the afternoon Saturday game is that's where Indy is playing Pitt. So I'm gonna watch that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be really interesting that matchup between me and her. Like I'm hoping it favors me just because of the one problem that's plagued her all year, which is depth. But I think it could go either way because again, I'm not a boat racer. But that's the playoffs from the toilet bowl to our
That is
matchups.
the playoffs.
It's
And we
fantasy
will see
football. It's always
next week. Yeah, and next week we're gonna have a whole new review. So
yeah
we're gonna be
of
going through
just
every playoff spot.
but yeah we're like Charlie
We're
Day
gonna
over
yeah, we're
here
gonna review it.
with well
So
no we're like Charlie Day with his little board and crisscrossed everywhere and what are the
yeah,
numbers?
yeah, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
this. So that's exactly how we are. But that's fantasy football, man. Like I think this
Yeah,
year is definitely more complicated than in
this
years
year was
past.
way there was way too much stuff going on.
Yeah, this year
Like
sucked. So many
there was
in
people that
so many
yeah.
disappointments.
Well, and I want to bring up like there was so many quarterback injuries, like
Yeah.
season-ending injuries.
But
You
and they were
got
all
what?
like freak. They were all freak. Like Rogers
Yeah,
Achilles was freak. Kirk Achilles was freak.
and
Joe
Anthony
Burrows,
Richardson.
Joe Burrows was freak. Anthony
Yeah,
Richardson, not freak, but I think just
yeah,
disappointing. Of like,
yeah,
you get landed on, and all of a
yeah.
sudden your season's over. I mean,
Well,
that's
but I'm not just talking about like freak QB injuries. I'm just talking about
oh
QB
no,
injuries in
but that's what I'm
general.
saying.
Like
That's what I'm
like
saying is
season
like yes, there have been
ending.
so many ending injuries for QBs, but the majority of them have all been like freak. Like
Yeah,
Herbert's broken finger and broken hand, freak injury. Deshaun Watson's shoulder injury was freak. Like I think they've
yeah,
all just been so unfortunate, and it has nothing to do with anything other than luck can be crazy sometimes.
yeah. And we'll
Hope
just
the
have to
best for 'em.
see how the playoffs go.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, going
uh,
into the dream lineups, I see a lot of Jalen
yeah,
Hurts to start off.
yeah. So we've got me and you have Jalen Hurts. Josh has Josh Allen, who's facing Dallas.
I mean, yeah,
Um, I
and
think that's a good.
any matchup.
It's a decent matchup for him. It's going to be a little rough, but
I get
I
it, Josh
think
Allen, because he's fighting
they
for his
have to
life.
score. They have to
Yeah.
score whether he's using his legs, whether he's using his arms. He's going to get them in the end zone.
Well, I
So
mean, they have to win to get in the playoffs. So
yeah,
the Bills are playing a different game than anybody else.
yeah,
And the way their offenses look now, running through Josh Allen and James Cook in the passing game, has looked
yeah,
really, really
yeah,
good.
yeah. It
Like,
was they had a solid performance against Kansas City, especially against that defense.
yeah.
So
I will say though, as
I
much
like the pick.
as Mahomes has been getting, it's kind of valid. Like the
I don't think it is.
the image of KT's foot, and if it happened how they said they did, which is the ref didn't say anything to KT or Andy
Yeah,
Reid, because Andy Reid would have called a timeout
yeah.
if the ref was like, yeah, he's not onside, he's not listening.
But it's not the ref's It's not the ref's responsibility to tell them that.
Yeah,
It's
it
their
is. No, it is.
responsibility.
No,
No,
it
no, no. But it
absolutely
is.
is to tell
But it
them.
is their
What
responsibility
do you
to
mean?
check with the refs.
And
Go
KT
look
did.
down the line.
That's what
No, he
I'm
did
saying.
not.
KT did.
He was looking the
No,
whole
but
time.
that's the story. That is the story, is that KT checked in, the ref didn't say anything, that Andy Reid was
Mm,
there, asked, ref didn't say anything, and then flagged it. That's the story.
uh,
That is the story. I'm
that's
not
the
saying which
story.
side of
That
it
may
I'm
not
on,
be the
because I'm not a
truth.
Chiefs fan, and I don't have
Yeah.
KT or Patrick Mahomes.
Well,
So it
and
doesn't
to be
affect
honest,
me
for
whatsoever.
me, this is a little sweet revenge from the Vikings
They they've
for
they've
that
got a
all those
lot of calls
bowl.
their way
They've
though.
had so many calls go their way.
Yeah.
They get one call that
And it's the
doesn't go their way, and it's the end of the world. And Pat Mahomes is throwing a hissy fit on the sideline like a
but
little
I
child.
will say I am
So
enjoying the it getting highlighted by some of the players of how
yeah.
terrible the refs have been. Because how many
Oh
times
yeah,
have I been in
I
our
have to
group
agree.
chat the last 3 or 4 weeks being like, well, saying things that I can't say on the podcast of
Yeah.
how bad the officiating has been.
Yeah. The
And I'm
refs
not
have
even
been
saying
awful
things like
this
against
year.
my fantasy team or against the Falcons, even though
Yeah.
the Falcons have gotten screwed so many times in the last 3 weeks. Not that they haven't also screwed themselves, but they have also gotten royally screwed by the refs on top of screwing themselves, which is why their
Yeah.
season is so bad. That's a whole separate podcast on itself. But
Mhm.
they've been awful. Just no other way of putting it. The refs have been terrible this season. Like there has to be a lot of film review. And I think it's to the point where we need refs in the box reviewing like
Yeah.
every single play, like in between whatever time that they have and being like, hey, like you guys missed this.
Yeah.
Like you can't let this go.
Well, see what they really need, they need somebody in the booth watching penalties. Not just watching the plays, but watching penalties. If a ref throws a flag, they can't just go up and go, yeah, this happened. Okay, and then announce it. Like have somebody review that from the box with all the camera angles, all of that,
Yeah,
and
I think
say
they
whether
should
that
put it
is
on
a
like a
flag
YouTube
or it's
channel
not.
themselves and be like flag, and then like what you're saying is have a
But
guy they'd be like, okay, what
that's not,
happened?
yeah.
And
But we don't get paid for that.
I've
We
got
don't get
pass
paid for that.
interference on this guy, and then they can replay it really quick while the play
Hmm.
is still like panning out and being like, yeah, no, pick it up, or yeah, that's a flag, but people have gotten so royally screwed, and not
Yeah,
just like one team in particular,
yeah,
everyone is getting screwed left and right, and as a fan, it is so infuriating
and it's
to
discouraging.
like that indie game. That
Yeah,
indie game was so infuriating. Like I'm not a Colts fan, but I have a lot of Colts players on my team.
yeah,
And so I've become somewhat of a pseudo Colts fan. And to watch them get so badly screwed by the refs is infuriating.
yeah. It is. It is.
And with that being said, a lot of us also have CMC this week.
All of us do.
Okay,
All three of us
it's
chose
against
CMC
Arizona.
versus Arizona. They're
Like you
they're
play
gonna
into
run
that
all over
matchup.
them. Yeah,
That's the kind of game you slobber over
yeah.
if you're a
And
fantasy.
that's a perfect matchup for CMC. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be
The
great for
one
him.
bad thing that could
Um,
happen is like a freak CMC injury. That is like
yeah,
the
I
only
hope not. Oh my gosh.
crazy, wild tinfoil hat thing that could happen. And we
Yep,
love CMC on this podcast, so we don't wish
yep,
any on CMC. We
yep.
love him.
And he's had too many season-ending injuries.
Yeah, like
So
at
we
some
don't
point,
we don't
and
need
he's
that.
also a Colorado kid, so we got to stick together.
Yep, exactly.
But
All right.
RB2 is where we start to break
Yep.
off,
RB2 is where we branch out. It's looking like Josh has Javante versus Detroit as his RB2.
which is
I think
interesting.
that's a decent matchup. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a lot of groundwork.
Yeah,
I think it's going to
it
be a
would be
competitive
passable,
game.
like
Yeah,
short.
it's going to be a competitive game, maybe a pretty heavily defensive game the on Denver's part.
Yeah,
But who knows? He could sneak in a touchdown or two um, in this game, just short goal line work or whatnot. Um, I've got Jameer Gibbs against
which I
Denver.
really like. And
Yeah,
uh,
I really like that.
not just for the matchup. Sorry, I want to say really quickly as a Gibbs owner for this, but I've watched a lot of Lions football, and it feels like they keep trying to play through Goff, and they need to play through Gibbs and Monty.
The
Like,
run game. Yep.
you see Jared Goff throw these throws, and it's like, dude, why did you try and fit that in there? Like, there's three guys on Sun God, or well, there's three guys on
Yeah.
Sun God and two guys on the Porter. Like, what are you doing? And then like you go back and watch the play, and you see Monty and Gibbs just like hanging out with room to run.
Yeah,
And
hanging out in the flat or
yeah,
just sitting there like,
like
okay.
at some point it's like, bro, just call Tom Brady and he'll tell you that he has six or whatever it is Super Bowl rings, and to suck it up and check it down.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like you're doing he has been
They
doing
need
way
to
too much.
utilize
He's
they
been
need to
doing
utilize him.
way too much when
Yeah.
Gibbs is such a reliable and good option.
Yeah, and they really need to utilize their run game
Yeah,
and
against if they're going to beat Denver
get
and get back
Jameer and
into
Monty
that,
on.
number one seed talk
Mhm.
for playoffs, they have to do it through Gibbs.
Yeah.
So I think he's a really good pick for this week.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I chose him. I thought he might be a little bit of a shot in the dark, because he's not a for sure thing.
Oh, yeah, but we love
But
our dark horses.
yeah, I love dark horses. Okay, so
I've
your
got
RB2.
yep. I'll chain.
Get it.
A chain, a cane.
Are you worried that him and Mostert are splitting carries and that Mostert has had
He's
the
like Gibbs to
lion's share?
no, he's like Gibbs for me. Like
Really?
he's so explosive that it is like kind of dark horsey like what Gibbs is, but he's just so good. You know,
Yeah. Well, all right, we'll see. We'll see this week.
Mostert's an old man,
Um,
so at some point,
okay.
bottom's gonna fall out for Mostert.
Yeah. Okay, so CD versus Buffalo. I
Yeah,
think that is a fantastic
I'm
pick by you
I'm
and
taking that
Josh.
too. Yeah,
It was between that him against Buffalo and AJ Brown versus Seattle for me.
but those are the two wide receiver matchups that you're
Yeah.
slobbering. Like CMC
Yeah,
is against
exactly.
Arizona. Like running back is only CMC against Arizona. The rest of
Yeah.
them are kind of, and we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But wide receiver, were very clear. Like AJ Brown has a super good matchup, and
Yep.
CeeDee Lamb has a super good
Yep.
matchup.
Yep. Those are the two like that I was kind of struggling with. I ended up going with AJ Brown just because I don't know. I like the matchup. It's not a tough defense, but their offense is rolling.
You
So,
you can't go
it
wrong.
could
I think.
be, yeah,
I don't think you can go wrong.
it could be a good, blow up game for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
what's
that's why I chose him over CD because CD is facing a little bit of a tougher challenge. But with
right?
the way Dak's throwing the ball, I
It
don't
doesn't
think that
matter.
would matter. So,
Well, and here's the thing.
we'll see.
So, like, here's the other matchups surrounding that, which are going to be tough for the playoffs. Tyreek Hill against the Jets. That's a tough
Yeah.
matchup. Jefferson is fighting himself, but like if
Yeah.
he wasn't injured, you'd be rooting for Jefferson. But Sun God against Denver is tough. Jamar Chase with the backup QB against Minnesota is tough.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs against Dallas is tough. Cooper Kupp, again, another player fighting himself, is tough. Devontae Adams, who has no quarterback, is tough. The only
Yeah.
other one you could argue would be like Debo, which, haha, spoiler alert, he's yours and my wide receiver too. So it's like
Yep.
you go through all of those matchups though to then get to this guy who
Yeah.
has questionable matchups.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And, Debo, he doesn't have a horrible matchup. But the only thing that I am struggling with when I picked him was it may just end up being the run game. And that could work in his favor. He's been utilized in the run game a lot over the
Yeah.
last, what, 2 years.
Yeah,
So,
he's a flex play.
he could end up being a really good player. Who
Yeah.
knows?
We'll see.
So
I
we'll
think
see.
it's a good matchup though. I think he'll still
Yeah.
get his. We'll see how
Hmm.
much it is, but he's going to get his.
Yeah. And going to Josh's wide receiver two, he picked Zay Flowers versus Jacksonville.
He's a homer. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's a home run threat, and he could do really well. He could just fall flat on his face. That we will find out
Just
this
like
week.
Homer
So,
Simpson.
yep. So moving on to tight ends. Josh has George Kittle. We all have different tight ends, which is awesome. He has George Kittle versus Arizona. Man,
Which solid matchup.
he's going 49ers heavy with CMC and George Kittle, but it's a good matchup. So
Yeah,
I
no
he
hate.
could do well. Yeah. I have Evan Ingram versus Baltimore. Tough
Which
matchup, but I think with the way he's been used the last 2 weeks,
it makes sense.
there is a decent chance that he could end up
Yeah,
being like tight
he's the
end
kind of guy that could
two
be
or
elite
one or
for the
three.
playoffs. Like Evan Ingram
Yeah,
is the literal definition of could be a league winner.
yeah.
But
He
not like
really could be
CMC
a
where
league
it's
winner.
like CMC is a league winner.
Yeah.
But then there's that tier right below it where Evan Ingram is like could
Yeah.
be a league winner just because of the
Yeah.
opportunity.
and he's saved me so many times
Oh yeah.
throughout this year with his blow up games, and this could be one of them. Who knows? So, your tight end is. I'll let you go ahead and
He's my
say it.
dark horse with Laporta because he's either so good or so bad. I was between him and
Yeah,
Hawk, and I just didn't like Nick Mullins throwing to Hawk, so I
yeah,
went with Laporta. I don't think it's a terrible matchup. I mean, he did bad against Chicago, but Detroit beat themselves against
hmm.
Chicago. Chicago literally
No, none of them,
and said thank
none
you.
of them did well
No,
against Chicago, and that's a divisional matchup for
except
you.
for Gibbs and Monty.
So,
Like Gibbs and Monty
yeah,
were like, "Hey guys, this is how you do
we're
it."
all right.
And
Yeah,
Jared Goff was like, "Throw a pick, another one," and the Lions defense
yeah.
was like, "Wait, don't even show up and play." DJ Moore will guard himself.
Oh my gosh.
Justin Fields can't run, right? That's illegal. Yeah. Anyways, the Lions suck. Sorry if you're a Lions fan. That's got to be rough. Um,
Well, hopefully they bounce back this week.
yeah, I'm hoping because I again that's another like pseudo fandom I've developed, which is also why I'm butthurt about it
Yeah,
because
I
I'm a
honestly, I
pseudo
was
fan
rooting.
because of Gibbs.
I was rooting. Well, not even because of Gibbs. I'm a Vikings fan, and I was still rooting for Detroit.
Yeah,
Like I
everyone
honestly, I
hates the
think they
Bears.
could
Like, come
be
on.
they could be a cool wild card this
Yeah.
year. Or well, they'll be in the playoffs because they're
Oh
gonna
yeah, I'm gonna be
beat the
watching them
Vikings.
in the
But
playoffs. Like even when
I
fantasy
think
is irrelevant, like I'm going to
yeah,
root for Gibbs.
yeah. And
It's
I like Detroit. I like Dan Campbell and the way he's been running that Detroit team. So I'm a fan
Yeah,
of him.
I don't care
But
if I'm missing 8 toes in my left butt cheek. Like let's go, man. That's the greatest football
okay,
quote.
I don't know about that, but all
Uh,
right.
No, that
Okay,
is Dan Kimball has the best quotes I've ever heard
yeah,
in my life. That is
yeah. He
literally
is he's
what
an
came out
interesting
of his
guy.
mouth. And if you don't know,
Yeah. Oh,
that
I
came,
know, I know.
it is
He's an
beautiful.
interesting guy. He's an
It is
interesting guy.
it couldn't have been more eloquent if he tried.
Oh my God.
And with that, I'll give you
Okay.
my first
Yeah.
flex.
Yeah.
I'm going
Give
with
you.
James Cook.
Let's
And
just do both of your flexes.
yeah, so I'm going James Cook and Rashi Rice. Like just
Yeah.
again, what I talked about with Josh Allen, like they're playing to get into the
Hmm.
playoffs. The offense is running through him, so I'm going to take that. And then Rashi Rice is coming off a good game with Mahomes, but he's their only receiver, and he's proved it time and
Yeah.
time again. He's their
When
deal.
he's turning into their wide receiver one,
Yeah,
and
so
that's
let it
how
rock.
it's
You
that's
know,
how it's been. Let it
if that's
go.
how it is, just run with it. And so
Yep.
I'm going to run with it.
Yeah. So I think that's a good pick for Rasheed Rice and James Cook. I like both of those. Me, I chose Devon Achane for my
Oh, but
flex one.
what about Mostert getting the lion's share of
I
the
was I know I was concerned. I was concerned, but
tinfoil
honestly,
hat?
like you said, he is a home run threat.
Yeah,
So he could end up breaking away like he did against Denver earlier this year
yeah, it's
and
just like him
score
and
like what 2 or 3 touchdowns.
yeah,
So,
it's him and Gibbs
he
are
could
like
do it.
those dark horse. Just they're
Yeah.
so good.
And my other flex is Javante Williams versus Detroit. So we already talked about him with
Yeah,
Josh, but
he's sneaky.
um, yeah. Uh, Josh. Josh's flexes are Jarek McKinnon versus New England. I think that is a fantastic option.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think he's going
that's
to
a
get
bold
a.
pick because
I
if
know.
Pacheco does get in, that's
Yeah,
gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a
yeah,
lot.
that could hurt. That could hurt him. But I think it's hit or miss. So either Pacheco misses the game and Jarek McKinnon just goes off and gets like 6 or 7 receptions for like 70 yards.
Yeah,
That could be real good
it
for
could
him.
happen. Yeah,
Or Pacheco goes in and Jarek McKinnon gets 2 points. So it
that's
could go either
fantasy
way.
football, baby.
Yeah.
Or as
Um.
the great Frank Sinatra said, that's life.
Yeah. It
Wrote a
is.
beautiful song about it.
And Cortland Sutton versus Detroit is his other
So
pick. I think
he,
it's a solid pick.
he's the same as Rasheed Rice of like
Yeah.
this is a wide receiver one. This is their guy.
Yeah.
Does he do it? Does he not do it?
Yeah. He hasn't really performed consistently, so I think he's going to be all right though.
Oh yeah, he's a
especially
big
against
next
the
time on
Detroit
Dragon Ball
defense.
Z type guy. Like he'll either be ascended or he'll still be screaming, and
Oh my
or you'll be
gosh.
screaming. And that's fantasy football. It's beautiful. It's what we play for.
Oh man.
But that
All
that
right.
we've dreamed. We're talking about playoffs. We're excited, most of us. I'm honestly, I think everyone's excited except for your dad and Michaela because
Yeah.
Duran's like, let's go. Marvin Harrison. You know what's gonna make me laugh so hard? He's tanked so tremendously this season.
Yeah.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. saying, nah, I'm gonna wait till 2025. And Caleb
That's
Williams
gonna
saying,
be
nah, I'm gonna wait
hilarious.
till 2025.
So they
That
both confirmed or they're still thinking about it?
no, they're still thinking about it. So
Okay, so they
but
haven't declared
I
for a
think it's
draft.
scarier
Okay.
that they're not confirmed going to
Yeah.
the draft than going back and forth on it.
Especially when it's almost January. That's interesting.
It's not looking good. So if they decide to go to
Yeah.
20, both of them decide to go to 2025, Duran's gonna be sitting there like, I
Yeah.
I sold I sold my soul for one of those two players this year. Well, he
Yeah.
sold the soul for Marvin Harrison Jr. And so if
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is not in this draft,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. getting to the NFL and then being a Jalen Rieger?
oh no,
Oh, can you
no,
imagine how
it's not gonna happen.
depressed Duran will be?
Yeah, he would be. Well,
Oh man.
and a lot of people are already having like buyer's remorse over not getting Puka and Tank.
Yeah.
So like that would be just adding that in would be hysterical. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I wish I would have got Tank. Oh man.
sorry, buddy. Sometimes you're a
Yeah.
win. Listen, sometimes you're
Oh my
right,
gosh.
and sometimes you're right. You know,
And that's the end of our podcast tonight.
that is the end of the episode. Please follow us. We are on social media
At Last Place FP,
at Last Place FP.
Twitter, well, X, sorry, X, not Twitter.
No,
X,
it's the same thing.
Instagram, Facebook. So, yeah, find us on there. Thank you all for watching and
Well,
listening to
everywhere you
us
get podcasts,
just talk fantasy football. Yeah, and you can find us anywhere you get your podcast.
Spotify,
So,
Apple Podcasts,
yeah,
YouTube. If you want to see our beautiful smiling faces,
yeah, or at least my beautiful face.
yeah, just yours.
I
That's
don't know
okay.
about Ethan's.
I'm the funny guy.
Yeah, yeah, let's go with that.
Funny guy with
All right. Thank y'all and have a good night.